I'm trying to find a good angle to film. Um, got a new chair now, so I'm trying to have set it up with this laptop because the laptop has the camera on it. So um, just the lighting in the room and is a little challenging to find that. And this is like, wow, is this up close and personal? And boy, do I look like shit. But um, what I wanted to talk about is my kids. And they have taught me so much about life. That has been such an amazing experience to have these children. Um, I come from a family that was abusive, and my mother always said everything was a secret. Don't tell the neighbors, what will the neighbors think? And there were so many rules. And, when you're growing up as a child, it's like, okay, what is good, right, and wrong? And if your actions as parents are right, then we can talk about it. But if your actions are wrong, then we can't talk about it. Why is it you can't change your actions that are wrong? And it was just really, really too much pressure on me to keep secrets. So I developed this rule in my life that I was going to stand up and talk about the dirty little secrets that go on because we all need to know about it. It's going on in more families than just mine. And the problem is nobody's actually written that book to say this is what I experienced. Why? Because your family members don't want you talking about them. And for me to talk about my kids, I'm sure right now it's already challenging enough. And for me to divulge family secrets, it's got to be kind of painful on my kids. And I kind of think the universe is working out this way because it's something that I wouldn't be able to have. Well, first of all, I'd have nothing to talk about if everything was great. Um, so I personally think my family experience was sort of a meant to be thing because it's like the universe knew I'd talk about it. If you want to do this, I'm writing a book and this chapter's in. You sure you want to do what you're doing? All the time that I was having this divorce experience with all of the corruption within government and medical and you name it, with every system that I was involved with, especially in nonprofits, the ones that claim to help. Um, I've always said these voices in the back of my head, I'm writing a book. You sure you want to be doing that? Because this chapter's in, and how will that make you look? And I think if we all lived by that rule that, oh, they're writing a book, I better not act that way, then maybe people will change the way they act. But I do have some amazing kids. I hope in time they will gain a different understanding than what they have now. Naturally, what goes on in a divorce is two parties, one person's always going to accuse the other person of doing something. And then the person that's got the accusation is the one that's got to defend what you're being accused of. In my situation, some behavior was really, really wrong. And as a mother, I would be pointing that out to them that, hey, what your father's doing is not really right. And I would be talking with other women that have gone through the same problem as me years ago, like it was their past experience and they've, been there, done that type of thing. And they would tell me, no, there's no way I would ever put down my children's father. And I thought, if I don't point out behaviors that are wrong, how will they ever know what's right and wrong? If I approve of everything as a parent, then I'm basically teaching my kids that, hey, this is a good thing to be doing. So I had a problem with that. So within this divorce, I was just as guilty as my ex-husband. He was accusing me of things, and while I was defending myself, I'm saying negative things about him. And while he's doing negative actions, I'm also telling the kids, hey, that behavior is not very good. Um, just so that they won't follow in the same footsteps as him. Who am I to judge what's right or wrong? But I mean, it came down to, you got to pay your bills. And if your father doesn't pay his bills, do you think that teaches the children that they don't have to pay their bills? So those are the kinds of um, lessons that I was focused on. I more, these are not my children. They're like they're my husband's children as well. They're not my property. They don't need to be raised the way I think they need to be raised. Um, I'm perfectly acceptable. I mean, my ex-husband taught my kids about animals, and my youngest daughter is now a horse whisperer. I mean, there's a lot of good things that I'm not into. I was never into animals. I was never into a lot of things that he was into. And just because I'm not into it, and some of the things I disagree with, but just because I disagree with some things doesn't mean that it should be the same for everybody else. So that's why I'm kind of very open that, getting a divorce, parent, somebody else is going to be involved in the parenting, and they have the right to set whatever rules that they want to set. I personally think it's a lot better if two parents get together, and sort of say, hey, let's agree on these rules are good for my kids and these rules are bad for the kids. If parents can really communicate, but let's face it, if you can't communicate when you're married, do you really think you can communicate when you're divorcing? That doesn't happen. But my kids, there's the cat. Um, to describe my kids, my youngest one or my oldest one, he is a freaking genius. I will only let out a little bit of information about him, but basically, um, University of Waterloo thought that he was a graduate of every engineering department, and he was only 19 at the time. Um, he's gone, and he doesn't even have high school. So he's a freaking genius. Very, very loving. This kid has got the biggest heart. He would always be helping family. My last child, 4, my ex-husband wasn't even around. He was off taking some 3-day course that he never even used, and it was only an hour away. He could have showed up, but didn't bother. So I needed to go to the hospital. I was in labor, and this child acted exactly like a father, and he was only like 5 years old. I had to wake him up to get ready to get a babysitter. I was like 30 minutes away from the hospital, and I wasn't about to drive, so I kind of had arrangements, but it was in the middle of a snowstorm, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I needed to, at least wake him up so that, the kids would be organized with the babysitter and stuff. And this kid is like, where's your suitcase? As soon as I woke him up, the instant I woke this kid up, he's like, where's your suitcase? Where's this? Where's that? Where's this? And he was so helpful. This is a kid that when I did split up at the age of, I think he was 18, while I was trying to find work and had other kids to support, this kid handed over his full paycheck for 6 months to help support his sisters. This kid also took in the family dog when we didn't have a place to live, and he did. That could take dogs. This kid would do so much for family. He's a freaking hero. But I don't get along with him. Uh, because he's got his father's control on problems. And I've always been into problem solving, so this kid's also, into problem solving. And when you're a problem solver, you run the risk of you need to see problems in the universe in order to fix them. So sometimes you see problems that aren't there, and there's definite problems with the things that he sees and what he pressures me to doing because he still thinks he's the boss of me for some reason. His learned behavior. Um, my other one, he would make me laugh so much. Such a great sense of humor. Really into biking, big time, sports. Um, really, really inspirational child. He's extremely gifted that he can control his mind to, I don't know, it's, how can I say this? He's got some really unique talents himself. Um, he can fall asleep instantly. He can shut his brain off to black and sleep instantly. He can make anything happen instantly. And but his father hated him and would yell at him all the time. And I had him tested once, and he receives information faster than anybody else. If he was in a room of 100 people, he would process information the first out of the 100 people. But he can't receive information. So you basically have to treat him like he's deaf. And that's why his father would always yell at him, because his father would say, do this, do this, do this. Give him like 5 things to do. He wouldn't be able to receive that information, so he'd be completely lost. And then there would be this big yelling at this kid, and it broke my heart every time. And there just was never, ever a connection. Meanwhile, my ex always had a really good relationship with the oldest son. So the second son always was sitting in the background watching the oldest child have a great relationship with the father, which wasn't really a great relationship. They had a great relationship up until he was 5, and then that relationship died, and then it was about this 5-year-old kid, desperate, would do anything to get that relationship back. So it did appear close, but it was nowhere near as close as it was before when he was 5. My other daughter, she's into flowers, really smart, intellectual person. She, wants to get back to nature, um, get along with her. My daughters, I see, are repeating my patterns, but they are at least receptive to receiving information. Um, this girl was, never got along with anybody. She was always stubborn and had really, really strong opinions. Um, really kind of controlling, really controlling actually. And yet she's calmed right down and very, very impressive human being. And then there's my baby that lives with me who's 19, and she's like a horse whisperer. I've got a zoo I'm living with. She's got an addiction to animals and works at a pet store. So if they get sick, she takes them home and keeps them. And wants to start sort of like an AA group for animals because she's got this addicted to animal thing. But it's her thing, and she is wise beyond her years. So those are my kids. And when I had them, I would listen to what they had to say. And because I did so, I ended up learning a lot of things. And they're things that people on this planet don't seem to know yet. Peace out.